I can get us started if you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Better roll.
All right, so this is week 7, the solution criterion. I found this week kind of challenging. I know Brittany and I talked last week just trying to write them. So I did make a few adjustments to mine as Dr. Side like left the information for us and was like, hey, like we all got our points, but like a lot of us maybe didn't write them correctly. So I'll read the one I submitted last week and then I'll also read the one that I kind of revamped. So my problem again is that we have rapid growth in the last 5 years, which has led to a dramatic increase in new staff. So we're needing to make an onboarding process. So my solution, the original one, I had like our plan in it, and he said like we shouldn't have our plan in it, if that makes sense. So like my first one was the onboarding process for new staff will be structured into 2 sessions, one in June and one in August. It will include tailored pathways for first-year teachers and experienced educators, ensuring that all new staff feels inspired, supported, and well equipped to uphold and advance Gretna Public Schools mission. Well, obviously, I said the solution, and he said we shouldn't say the solution in there because then it knocks out like what other people's ideas would have. Makes complete sense. So I kind of just cut that part out. And the new one I thought maybe was more along the lines was the onboarding process for new staff will be restructured, ensuring that new staff feel inspired, supported, and well equipped to uphold and advance Gretna Public Schools mission. So I just kind of took out the part where we had the solution. So it still leaves it open so other people can bring ideas to the table. I originally categorized my problem as like a complicated one, but I think it's actually a simple. Um, it's just so I think I need to use an action learning procedure. We know what the problem is. We've said like we have a whole bunch of new staff. We need to be able to make sure they know the Gretna way. Um, we have already evaluated the current onboarding process and sent out the survey to have people like see what people like and dislike. And so we have identified our key challenges and we've already integrated it into our strategic plan for the next few years. So I guess the next step just involves assessing what the ideal onboarding process will look like. So we'll continue to gather insights and have a committee to establish those and analyze the results that we have to make sure we can design this new method or this new onboarding process to ensure that all new staff feels prepared to do it the Gretna way.
Megan, why did you move that to a simple problem other than the obvious reason that you've already explained? Was there a backup on criteria that you went with? What made you make that decision?
Um, as I was reading through the problem solving procedures and like the different ones you use, I was just like, this doesn't fit the other ones, which I know he said they don't have to go with that, whatever type of problem you categorize. But as I was looking through it, I was like, we know our problem. We know that it like they're like the solution kind of we are like already starting to see it pan out. And so I just felt like it was more of a simple problem than I had initially categorized it as complex.
Thank you. That
Mhm.
makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, good.
I think it looks great. I uh I haven't made a change to mine yet because I really don't know what I'm gonna do, but um working off of what our professor said and making that change is a nice job.
Yeah. Um, Anything else on Megan's? Okay. Well, we know mine is the lots of EL students and how we're going to meet their needs of all the different languages coming in and what resources we have. So my solution criteria was by the end of the professional development course that we would implement, I think I kind of went with um, not just the course online where teachers would complete it at their own pace, because we talked about how, you'll have the teachers that absolutely do it and you'll have the teachers that won't do it. So I kind of thought about combining it to like a day of professional development with where they could do some courses within that day, and we could even have like another professional development day on another like bring that same speaker or your guest person in on another professional development day and finish it. So everything we would do would be based on those professional development days. So everybody would have to do it. But anyways, teachers will be able to identify and explain at least five strategies for English new learners, and such as visuals, scaffoldings, techniques, and collaborative learning, and how these can be integrated into their daily lesson. I wasn't sure about the problem solving procedure, but I felt like I was like, maybe it's complex. But then I thought, well, but if we have it broken down into a course that we have planned out well and we know what all the teachers need to do and what their goals are, then it's to me was more simple as well. Like I wasn't sure about what to put for the problem solving procedure because like I said, I said complex, but then I was more like, well, if we have it planned out really well, we know where we're going, we know exactly what we want to be accomplished and how these lessons work, then it should be simple to go through the procedures.
That's exactly how I felt, Brittany, when I was like looking at it. I was like, okay, I don't think it's actually as a complex problem because we know our path.
Brittany, I actually made a comment on yours this last time around, and it was actually basically feeding into that same thing that I thought you guys had it laid out very well. I was actually going to suggest that it was a simple problem because of that fact. You have a very good plan here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, and looking at it, I would agree too. I think in a lot of these we can think, well, simple, complicated, because in some minds, the complicated piece would be getting it all organized, but really the plan itself, once you've got it organized, I believe is simple. And then you talk about the action base because everybody's going to be involved in doing something. And so I would agree too that it's simple because it's outlined, it's explained, and there's strategies in place that everybody can follow. So you really don't have the what ifs, then ifs type thing. It's here's what we're going to do. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I would
that's right.
echo what Todd said.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to be honest. I talked to Dr. C today, and I actually texted out with Austin, and we were facing the same issue. And so more than one way. We were facing the same issue in terms of our building structure, and then we also face the same issue with our issue being complicated. The solution criteria, after visiting with Dr. C, he felt that it was right on point. The Raymond Central must provide physical space accommodations for the 3% annual growth rate we're experiencing according to the Nebraska Department of Education website. So that is criteria based upon the descriptor we're supposed to have, the priority, the indicant, and the measure and the benchmark that were in our textbook. That's where it got messy. When we are looking at a complicated piece, we're supposed to have plan A, plan B, plan C with developed plans that have best case, worst case scenarios, and then probable cause. And so with all of that, laying that out, what's that look like? What I did was put a huge script together for my assignment from last week, including what we started clear back the first time we got together. And I shared that with you then about what our plans were. Plan A, plan B, plan C. I've already laid that out. That's more of an action plan. That's more of something that we should be putting together when we meet with our subgroups. So he suggested looking at things like teacher-student ratios, class size numbers, numerical and fiscal effect, staffing pieces, budgeting percentages, even talking about square footage and how that's going to affect, and then have our groups discuss those things. All those in the back of my mind, but what we didn't do was take the time per Rule 9 and per Rule 10 is to put that front-loaded information in there and let it take its course. And with all honesty, the text was kind of confusing that way, and it led me down a path where I'm not sure I'm doing this correctly. I still think it's a complicated problem, but that's where I'm leaning on the four of you. If you think it's more of a lesser problem, or if even it's more complex, we can go there too. Austin's feeling facing something very similar, and I think he got
I would
similar
agree.
feedback today too. So, but that's what we're at. So, what I put down for problem solving procedure, it lays out the plan A, plan B, and plan C. And originally, I put in there a lot of context with grade likes, the neutral site, and the existing structure development. But after talking to Dr. C and looking at that the context again for the 500th time, I think that needs to be removed. So that's where I am right now. Questions, thoughts?
I would, I would agree, like what you were talking about there, Troy. In my opinion, and from what I'm understanding from things, is looking at what you're trying to get accomplished as far as, what are we going to do with the growth? How are we going to make this work? I don't think it's a simple plan at all. I think it's a complicated one because you've got so many things that, I always go back to the what ifs, then ifs. And so as I can just see in your meetings, as you have your groups together talking about, what's this going to look like? What if we have a neutral site out where the existing high school is? Then what do we do with our other buildings? What if we build another elementary? Then are we going to be looking at building a middle school down there? So I just feel like, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but I feel like in yours especially, where facilities come to mind, 3% growth, all the growth going on, North Lincoln's building your direction. What's that going to look like? So I think you do have a very complicated thing with a lot of contingency on what if, then if, best case, worst case, all of these things. So you got a lot of moving parts in that.
Yeah, Troy, I would agree that, this is a complicated problem, and I use the same contingency plan procedure for mine. As I told you this morning when you were texting me, I like how you have a 3% annual growth. You're tying it to actual numbers. Actual numbers can, show your public, this is what is actually happening rather than mine. I just left mine pretty broad. But I truly feel like you're on the right track. I know we're dealing with a problem that is bigger than us alone. But I think you're definitely going down the right path, and um, I know I look at yours to help with mine, so I think you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I would
Well,
agree.
that's called the blind leading the blind. So I apologize, Austin.
Unfortunately,
Exact
yeah, I
comment.
agree with that.
I like what Austin said, the 3%. I was like, oh wow, like that's a lot, So like I feel like having that percentage there does again like show like this is an actual number. This we are actually growing by this much. We're not just saying we're growing. And it is definitely a complicated problem, I think, in my book. Like there's a lot of factors that are into play, a lot of people that it involve, and you have to have a backup plan or a plan B and C because it's not going away if you guys don't get your plan A.
Very
That's
good. And I'm going to steal a little bit of thunder from, thank you, Megan, and thank you, all of you. So I'm going to steal a little bit of Austin's thunder because he did a cool thing, and you're going to see it in a few minutes about what he's doing with his. And I'm going to chime in on that in a moment when he starts talking about his, because his is very similar to mine. Any thoughts or suggestions on maybe approaching the plan for next week? Is there a way to back up on this? Because I think I when he said don't get the cart before the horse, I think I got my wagon's horse and the entire cavalry in front of this thing. So, um, what are you thinking, folks? Am I a healthy place, or should we? You know the idea that I have with the matrix and trying to put decision making pieces in place. Do I go back that far to let others have that say? Because this is all hypothetical. Remember, I'm trying to define this. I'm building an airplane while flying it here, and I'm trying to do something that is going to happen targeting spring in the summer. But I need to understand how I can get answers from a phantom group that's not created yet. Thoughts?
Well, I I think you're on the right track. I think what Dr. C was saying, cart before the horse. You did have a lot of moving parts right away in the beginning. But I think kind of going backwards and simplifying your problem and then diving into that once you figure out what you're really going to focus in on, and then getting all those intricate moving parts together to take to a school board or take to a community meeting or something like that. I think you're on the right track.
Thanks, Austin.
I would agree on that, and yeah, it's difficult to, um, yeah, it's a difficult thing to not want to get the cart out before the horse or whatever, but having these things in place, I think you're on the right track. And then obviously there's other resources you can reach out to and find out how did you handle these situations? What was the best case scenario on those types of things? So
Thank you.
keep chopping wood. So as we've talked about with Plattsmouth, I want to back up a little bit. If we have students that need additional academic support or behavioral support, this isn't the plan we put in place. Like if I have a student that needs academic or behavioral support, I don't make them apply to get the academic behavior support. I think that might have been misinterpreted. This is designed for students who want to go and leave, disenroll Plattsmouth High School to do online learning. And when we lose those students to online learning, we aren't available to provide them unless they continue to request it, the IEP support, the 504 support, the social emotional support. So this is something we want to put in place to keep students who, for those particular reasons, maybe want to disenroll. So we don't, I don't want anybody to think we make people apply to get support from us. This is a whole different situation. So what our solution criterion is, just by school year 27-28, the district would expect 90% of eligible students living in our district to be enrolled in one of our schools. An alternative school could be one option. Obviously we have the high school, middle school, elementary, and we've got our early childhood center as well. So the priority school would focus first on the students with IEPs and or 504s that for whatever reason want to leave, disenroll, and go to some sort of a homeschool. And I've emphasized this before, where we lose the touch with them. So that's what that's about. I don't want anybody to think like, okay, well, this kid's going to fail out, so Plattsmouth makes him apply to get help. No, that's not what this is about at all. The problem-solving procedure for us, the problem's complicated. And the reason I went with complicated is there's so much contingency planning. We need to identify, prepare for if this, then this, because this is a whole new situation for us. I do have 3 or 4 other school district plans that I've looked at and researched a bit and how that can be come into play here. But again, we have to be able to present some scenarios to be able to address them as we move forward. So as we're in our committee meetings and talking about what this would look like, I think we really have to identify, well, here's some scenarios, and then, well, okay, so then what if this would come up? Well, then we'd have to go to this. So I went with contingency and a complicated problem because it's not a simple problem. It's not as easy as 1, 2, 3, ABC, and we're ready to roll it out. It's going to take a lot of planning from the different people that we've identified to be on our committees to discuss it. So that's where we came from, and we've already identified that student-centered opportunity, achievement, resilience. So we got some things we want to really identify within the school. And then again, like I said, our procedures it's complicated. A lot of contingency planning and those types of things. So I don't know, what do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I definitely think you're on the right track. CPS is in talks of adding an alternative school to our admin building now. We're working on renovating that for the fall of 26. So whenever that gets brought up, I think what you're doing and conversations of applications to the school have come up. So a lot of the things that you're talking about with your problem are conversations that we're having over here. So I think you're definitely on the right track.
I
I
really
love
like.
it all, Todd. The question I have is you're looking at the same thing that I was looking at when I first put my solution criteria together. Was I saying too much in my solution criteria, and should that be elsewhere? You've got a lot of going on there. And the one thing I focused on, I just pulled up my in the textbook again, was the priority again. And what really stuck in my head was the word must that I went with mine, and that's how I finally flipped the script to understanding that I have to have that in there. But it didn't have to be the word must, but for me it stuck. Um, and I love where you're going with yours. There's no doubt you're definitely on the right track. So, um, with respect to your solution criteria, did you get any feedback on limiting any context there, or was there any that should be in the problem solving procedure? What did he give? Did he give you any feedback on that?
In talking with Dr. C, he suggested that to have it more of a by the school year 27, 28. My original one was we want to implement, but then, I mean, that's why he's the professor, right? Because yeah, it makes sense. It's going to take some time to roll this out. Um,
Sure.
and so I guess there, Troy, I'm kind of like getting my, what is it, the cart and the horse mixed up, whatever, because I'm like, in 2025, we're going to do this. Well, we got to have our meetings. We got to get everything put in place. I've got the financing. I'm not going to be in this district next year, but I do have financing set aside um, that I've talked to the superintendent about that I'd really like to keep that within the building budget kind of earmarked to make sure that this can come to fruition for our students. Um, but yeah, I think I'm not really a red light, yellow light guy. I'm always a green light guy. So I just got to kind of sometimes go back to that yellow light and say, okay, let's slow it down a bit. When I drive, I go by all the rules though.
Well, I love yours. I think it's so well thought out, and I really like it. I just think it'd be
Yep.
great for the students.
Seeing that you have the day and like you said, he told you the years, I'm like thinking back to mine. I'm like, I probably need to add that. Like,
Yeah.
when do I need to implement this, or when are we hoping to have this implemented by?
It's
And
strong, Todd.
he also had the 90% of eligible students. So basically he gave me that kind of here's where you're at.
Mhm.
I didn't really have like the percentage of students. And I hadn't thought about a percentage of students because we can't catch them all. We'd love to. And if we could catch them all, there would not be any dropout rates, right? In any school. So um, that's kind of, but that made a lot of sense to me. And so that's where that came from. And I discuss this each week with my school social worker because her and I kind of had the brainchild of all this. And so she's really even kind of given me some, hey, how about this, Todd? And so it's kind of a work in progress between what we came up with a couple years ago to where we're at now to just kind of trying to put it all together.
It's solid.
All right. So we're getting to mine. To be honest, I feel like I'm kind of treading water right now with this. It is every time we're doing it or we're talking about it, it's a massive undertaking to think about, to wrap my head around. I wish I would have chose something that I deal with every day, like absenteeism or just something more that I'm aware of right now. Because this high level thinking, and I feel Troy's feeling the same way. Like, how do we solve this giant issue? So I I left this very broad this week. Dr. C came in and told me that I need to fix my solution criteria because it was so broad. I said students enrollment continues to rise in CPS. I need the percentage in there like Troy had. Um, Probably need to have year to year from 2004 to 2005 to show the growth. Construction of new elementary school, and I just used the word drop enrollment numbers below capacity level at other buildings. So he did talk about teacher-student ratios. He talked about some other things that I'm trying to get from my superintendent, those numbers to add. So I will change that when I get in there. But then, like we talked about, this is a complicated procedure, and I use the contingency plan procedure. So this is kind of what I came up with. I came up with two possibilities and kind of worked through them. Like I talked about earlier last week, construction of new elementary school to alleviate the stress and drop enrollment numbers amongst all five elementary sites. And I kind of just went through what I think would happen. A bond would not pass. I mean, it hasn't in the past, and we'll continue to have overpopulated classrooms. Um, the probable, what will probably happen is the bond will fail, and we'll have to rethink how we're going to finance building this elementary school. And I know that I haven't taken the budget class yet, so it's kind of tricky, but if you can levy debt different ways to pay off some early and um, there's ways to go about it to get funding to build a new site is what I'm getting at is what I understand. Possibility B, construction of additions to current elementary schools and buildings to add classrooms to accommodate future growth and classroom sizes. The worst case, I said, the band will fail, which will eliminate the opportunity to add on to buildings. Best case, I think we have a four-track building, two three-track buildings, and two two-track elementary schools. I think that we will add to all the schools that aren't four-track already, make them all four-track. Um, I think that will alleviate some of the stress. Um, but then I was just in a meeting today and building of a new intermediate school came up, and I had not even ever thought of that. So I don't know. That's why I feel like I'm kind of drowning on this one.
See, I think your ideas are sound and it fits into where my mindset is too. But that's where I'm with you, that treading water feel, because we're too far in front. We're putting solutions to problems that we've not proposed to that phantom public. And so we're thinking for ourselves versus what they're telling us that we need to back up and think again. I love your plan. And that's what I was saying when I gave my presentation a few minutes ago. I absolutely love the probable case. If the bonds are going to fail, you know exactly where you're going. And I love that idea. So I think you got solid stuff here, Austin.
Yeah, thank you.
And Austin, here's where I'm going to disagree with you. Not on your plan, not on your problem solving, but I think it's good that you chose something that's kind of out of your uh, everyday realm as a problem, because when you become a superintendent, you'll be able to do things about attendance, but that won't be your responsibility.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
when it comes to, hey, we need to build things, we need to have additions, whatever, that's going to be your responsibility. So don't think you should have stayed within that, and don't think this is above you. This is really stretching you, and it's going to help you become better at what you're trying to accomplish. And that, I think, your end goal is to be a superintendent. So um, don't ever doubt where you should be at, because this is good stuff, and you're going to learn more from doing something like this than would be, how can I cut down on attendance, because you can do that just at any time. So
Mhm.
kudos, and keep pushing yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Austin, I have taken the budget class, and I'm telling you, I'm just as confused as you are on this problem. So, um, right. So there you go.
Yeah.
Too bad. Like, it is exciting too. You want, it would be amazing and ideal if you could build that new elementary school and just have everything go the way that you want it to, because
Yeah.
it is, unfortunately, that's not reality, but it is really great that your community is growing so much and could have all these great opportunities for your students. But so it's too bad it's not more of an exciting opportunity, but it will be a huge learning opportunity too for you and everyone working with it.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully I have those numbers for us next week that I can really dive into and show you guys. So
The optimist in me is like, it's gonna pass. Like, let's not look
Yeah.
at the worst case scenario, but I know that's not true. And I'm in a district, like I've been very blessed. Like Gretna, we're really lucky. We've passed every single bond ever since I've been here. And I realized that's like being in this class and all that, that's not the case usually. And so just seeing this, it's like, no, then it's like the problem's still there. So we have to solve it. The kids aren't going anywhere.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. They're just continuing to come.
Yep.
No one's leaving, and everyone's just Columbus is such a good city that everyone wants to come here, I feel like. So,
Also, have you guys ever thought about like, I know Bennington, I felt like they're kind of at a standstill now, but I felt like they did a nice job of, okay, we're going to build an elementary because our elementaries need, we're getting full there. Then we're going to build another elementary and just kind of work their way up the ladder to where they got like 2 or 3 years ago, built the new middle school, and
mhm.
now they're going for another high school. Have you guys ever considered like just step by step of, or like Fremont, I think they did maybe a couple new buildings and revamped some buildings to give additional space. Do you guys ever have any of those top thoughts in your meetings at all, or?
Uh, yeah. But when they did the community growth survey back, it was a 10-year plan, and when they did that and built the high school, we're already surpassed those numbers, and we're only 5 years into that community growth. So I feel like when they built the highs because they, like I said last week, they renovated the middle school, well, the old high school to be the middle school. They made it 5 through 8, took fifth grade out of the elementary buildings, right? That relieved some stress. They thought it would solve the problem up here. Now the middle school's full, elementaries are full.
Yeah.
We have a few more classrooms here at the high school, but it's just growing at a rate that we can't keep up. But I think they did take those steps. That's why they did. We're gonna renovate the middle school, build a new high school. We'll be good for the next 15 years. Well,
Is there a concern that based on those numbers, when you built the high school, that, okay, we're going to be comfortable for a while, and now you're looking at like, okay, we might be comfortable for another 2 years, but then now we're going to have the same problem at our high school as we're having all of our other buildings? Or do you think your high school is going to be pretty comfortable for 5 years or 10 years or whatever?
no, I think we're gonna run out of space if we continue down. From last year to now, we're over 115 plus students. We're at
Uh,
1,400 plus right now, and that's just in 1 year. So I know this. I know it'll be some stress will be off the high school because this next high school or freshman class is only 286. I think the seniors going out are 370 right now. So that'll give us some relief up here at the high school, but those other buildings are still gonna feel the
yeah.
strain of all those students.
Well, one hand, it's a good problem to have because you have growth coming in. It's going to keep the district
Yeah,
growing.
job stability, job stability.
And yeah, it's a good case, bad case scenario.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all for sharing. And I think we're learning a lot, even if we feel like we're not heading in the correct direction. I know this is exactly what this class is about, right? To help us learn and get prepared because these will be the problems someday if we keep moving up in leadership roles. So,
It was a
Yeah.
challenging week. That solution criteria was very hard for me to wrap my head around and get the right data and think of, actual numbers to put in there. Like, yeah, yeah.
Right
But and
on.
I think we all kind of struggled with that a little bit. So good group though. Thanks for everything.
I have to reiterate what Todd said a moment ago, that we have to remember what we're aiming for here. So ultimately, if we're looking at being superintendents, if that is our ultimate goal, those problems aren't the problems we're facing right now. And so that makes a lot of sense, Todd. That was a great point. So thank you
Yeah,
for that.
for sure.